Have you ever found yourself in the middle of an argument with your partner and suddenly out of your mouth comes a phrase you swore you'd never say? A phrase your own mother or father used to say, and you freeze for a second thinking, oh no, I've become them. If you've had that moment, you are not broken, and you are certainly not alone. What you just experienced is a glimpse of something psychologists call your family of origin script, and understanding it can change everything about how you relate to people. Welcome to Mind Decoded. I'm Dr. Ann.
And I'm Zach. Dr. Ann, today we are unpacking something that honestly I think about more than I'd like to admit. It's about how the family we grew up in shapes who we become, and whether we can actually do anything about it.
Exactly. Today we're talking about family of origin and specifically how childhood family experiences shape our adult personality and how we can rewrite that internal script. And Zach, I have to say, this is one of those topics where the research is so rich and so personally relevant that I get genuinely excited to share it.
Okay, I am ready. But let's start with the basics. What do psychologists actually mean when they say family of origin? Is it just a fancy term for the family I grew up in?
It is, but with one crucial addition. Your family of origin isn't just the people you lived with as a child. It's the entire emotional and relational ecosystem that taught you what love looks like, what conflict means, who you're supposed to be in a relationship, and whether the world is generally safe or threatening. Think of it like the operating system that got installed on your brain before you were old enough to choose which apps to download.
Okay, wait. So you're saying that the way I handle a disagreement at work, or how I react when my partner seems distant for 5 minutes, that all traces back to things I learned before I could even write my own name.
A surprising amount of it, yes. And here's the part that surprised me most when I first read this research. Most of us think we make relationship choices based on conscious preferences. I want a partner who's kind, I want a job where I'm respected. But beneath that conscious level, there's a far more powerful system running the show. It's what psychologists call an internal working model, and it was built from thousands of tiny interactions with your earliest caregivers.
An internal working model. Okay, break that down for me. What does that actually feel like in real life?
Imagine you're a toddler and you're crying. One parent consistently picks you up, soothes you, says, I'm here. Over time, your brain builds a model that says, when I'm distressed, people will come. I am worth coming to. The world is responsive. Now imagine a different toddler, same cry, but the parent is overwhelmed, depressed, or simply inconsistent. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. That brain builds a very different model. I can't count on people. Maybe I'm too much. The world is unpredictable. Neither toddler is consciously thinking these thoughts. The model just forms.
That hit me harder than I expected. I'm thinking about my own childhood now, and I'm realizing my dad worked a lot. He wasn't absent, but he wasn't really there, you know? And I remember feeling like I had to achieve something, get a good grade, or win a game to really get his full attention. Is that related to what you're talking about?
Deeply related. What you're describing, Zach, is a perfect example of what researchers call a conditional attachment pattern. You learned that love and attention weren't just freely given, they had to be earned through performance. That's not a conscious belief you chose. It was a survival strategy your younger self developed because it worked. And here's the thing, that strategy might have served you brilliantly as a kid, but if you're still running that same program at 32, it can create chaos in your adult relationships.
So you're saying I might still be trying to earn love by achieving things. That actually explains a lot about why I feel anxious whenever I'm not being productive. But here's my question. Does everyone carry these scripts, or is it only people with what we'd call a difficult childhood?
Every single person carries them. There's no such thing as a childhood without scripts. Even in the healthiest, most loving families, you're learning something like conflict is safe and can be resolved, or people will always come back together after a disagreement. Those are scripts too. They're just scripts that tend to serve you well instead of tripping you up. And this brings us to the research. In the 1950s, a British psychoanalyst named John Bowlby started studying what happens when young children are separated from their mothers. What he discovered eventually became attachment theory, and it's been replicated and expanded by researchers ever since, most famously by Mary Ainsworth in her strange situation experiments.
The strange situation. What was that?
Ainsworth would bring mothers and their 1-year-olds into a playroom, then have the mother leave for a few minutes and a stranger enter, and then have the mother return. She was watching one thing: what does the child do when the mother comes back? Securely attached kids cry, go to mom, get comforted, and then go back to playing. Anxious kids cling and can't be soothed. Avoidant kids ignore the mother entirely, they act like they don't care. But here's the kicker. When Ainsworth measured these kids' heart rates, the avoidant ones were just as stressed as the crying ones. They just learned that showing distress didn't work.
Wait, they were just as stressed, but they'd learned to hide it? That's actually heartbreaking. A 1-year-old has already figured out that showing their feelings is pointless.
And that 1-year-old grows up to be an adult who, when their partner seems distant, doesn't say, hey, I'm feeling insecure. They shut down. They go cold. They might even convince themselves they don't need anyone. And all of that happens automatically, beneath the surface of conscious thought. And look, once you understand the mechanism behind this, you might actually feel more compassion for yourself. Because this isn't a character flaw. It's an adaptive strategy that your younger self created to survive an environment you didn't choose.
Okay, I did not see that coming. So the way I react in my relationship right now might actually be a 1-year-old survival strategy still running the show. That's both terrifying and kind of relieving.
That tension you're feeling right now, Zach, between terrifying and relieving, that's exactly where the healing begins. Because once you realize the script exists, you're no longer just acting it out unconsciously. You're watching it happen. And that tiny gap between the trigger and the reaction, that's where your power lives.
But here's what I want to know. Even if I see the script, how do I actually change it? I mean, these patterns feel so automatic. Like yesterday, my partner didn't text me back for 3 hours, and I immediately went to this place of, she's losing interest, I did something wrong, I need to fix this. And I was texting her multiple times, trying to get a response. And afterwards, I thought, why did I do that? But in the moment, it didn't feel like a choice.
What you just described is something Freud originally named, and it's been studied extensively since: the repetition compulsion. It's this deeply human tendency to unconsciously recreate familiar emotional situations, even when they're painful, because familiar feels safer than unknown. Your brain would rather deal with the anxiety of being ignored, which it knows how to handle, than sit with the discomfort of healthy uncertainty, which it has no template for.
So I'm actually choosing a familiar pain over an unfamiliar possibility. That's wild. And now I'm thinking about my last 3 relationships, and honestly, they've all had this same dynamic. I'm always chasing. They're always slightly out of reach. I thought that was just my type. But you're saying I'm recreating something.
Not consciously, but yes, your internal working model says, love is something you earn, people you love will be inconsistently available, and you have to work to keep them interested. So you'll unconsciously gravitate toward partners who confirm that model, or you'll interpret their normal behavior through that lens, turning a busy afternoon into a crisis. And the cruel irony is, by reacting to that fear, you often push people away and create the very distance you were afraid of. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, that's a lot. But I asked how to change it, and I genuinely want to know.
The first step isn't what most people expect. It's not about fixing yourself or becoming a perfectly secure person overnight. It's about awareness with radical acceptance. In cognitive behavioral terms, the sequence goes: trigger, automatic thought, emotional response, behavioral reaction. Most people only notice the reaction, sending those triple texts, starting that argument. But you can learn to catch the automatic thought. For you, Zach, it might sound like, I'm being abandoned, I'm not important. And the moment you can name that thought, you've created a gap.
So instead of just reacting, I pause and I say to myself, oh, There's that old script again. That 1-year-old who learned he had to perform to get attention is freaking out right now. And that's not actually what's happening in this adult relationship.
Exactly. That's the rewriting in real time. And you can literally practice this. Some therapists call it earned secure attachment, the idea that even if you didn't get a secure blueprint as a child, you can build one as an adult. You do it by having repeated experiences where you feel anxious, you don't react immediately, you sit with the discomfort, and then nothing catastrophic happens. Over time, your brain updates the model. People can be reliable. I am okay even when someone's not immediately available. And here's the research that gives me so much hope. We now know from neuroplasticity studies that the adult brain remains capable of forming new neural pathways throughout life. Your attachment style is not a life sentence, it's a starting point.
So, if I understand this correctly, the work isn't about erasing my childhood or pretending it didn't happen. It's about noticing when the old pattern shows up and choosing, even just once, to do something slightly different.
That's it. Precisely. And every time you make that choice, you're laying down a new neural pathway. Think of it like walking through a field of tall grass. The old path is worn down, easy to follow, almost automatic. When you choose the new response, you're pushing through the grass where there's no path yet. It's harder at first, it takes more effort. But each time you walk that new route, it gets a little more defined. Eventually, it becomes a path too.
I love that image. So, the goal isn't to be perfect. It's to practice noticing the old path and choosing the new one, even if I only manage it sometimes. And over time, my brain actually physically changes.
Yes, and I want to emphasize something that often gets lost in conversations about personal growth and healing. This is not about blaming your parents. Your parents were almost certainly running scripts from their own families of origin, scripts they never chose and probably never examined. When we understand family of origin work correctly, it doesn't make us angrier at our parents. In most cases, it helps us see them with more clarity and compassion. They were handed a script too. And the work you're doing now, Zach, to rewrite your own script, that can be the thing that stops the pattern from being handed to the next generation.
That's a powerful way to think about it. I'm not just doing this for myself. But Dr. Ann, if someone's listening right now and they've just had that moment of recognition, like, oh no, I'm repeating my parents' patterns, what's the one thing you'd tell them to do today?
Start with curiosity, not judgment. Tonight, when you notice yourself having a strong reaction to something in a relationship, whether it's anger, withdrawal, anxiety, whatever, ask yourself one question. How old do I feel right now? Because often the reaction that feels wildly disproportionate to the situation is coming from a much younger part of you, the part that learned that script long ago. And simply noticing that, without trying to fix it or judge it, is an act of profound self-compassion. That noticing is the seed of change. Everything else grows from there.
How old do I feel right now? That's such a simple question, but I can already think of 3 moments this week where the answer would have been, oh, about 7. And that alone changes how seriously I take the reaction.
Exactly. It gives you perspective. It lets you be the adult in the room for that younger part of yourself. And before we wrap up today, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. The family script you inherited is not the story of your life, it's the first draft, and you are now the author. You get to revise, edit, and rewrite. It's not quick work, and it's not always easy work. But it is real work, backed by decades of solid psychological research, and it can genuinely change how you experience love, work, and everything in between.
I feel like I need to sit with that for a while. This conversation has genuinely shifted something in how I see my own patterns. If you're listening and you had a moment like that too, if something in this episode made you think, wait, that's me, we'd love for you to subscribe to Mind Decoded. Every day, Dr. Ann and I unpack another piece of the puzzle of being human, and we want you here with us.
Hit subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow for another episode. In the meantime, be curious about your script. You didn't write it, but you absolutely can revise it.